gúúsù ìwọ̀ oòrùn Nàìjíríà tí wọn ò kí ń ṣe Haúsá Nàìjíríà, Haúsá Nìjẹ̀ ni wọ́n, ṣùgbọ́n Haúsá náà ṣe ni wọ́n. So àwọn tó jẹ́ Haúsá tó wà Nàìjíríà wọ́n rí àwọn ìyẹn gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọmọ ìyá wọn kó tó máa ro ọmọ Yorùbá tó jẹ́ ọmọ Nàìjíríà. So they will think of that ethnicity before the concept of Nigeria or the idea of being a Nigerian, and you can't blame them. Ẹ kí n pa ilé ẹ̀rín kan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ bí ọdún mélòó sẹ́yìn. Gọ́vnà Bauchi ńgbà yẹn, òun sọ, Bala Mohammed, òun sọ pé Fúlàní o wípé they are global citizens. Now, mi ò fara mọ́ gbogbo nǹkan tó sọ. I don't agree with the sentiments. But the idea that you could pick out of what he was saying is the fact that they think about their ethnicity or their ethnic identity before even considering the concept of Nigeria, because they are beyond Nigeria. So fún Hausa nígbà tí ọ̀rọ̀ Niger ń bẹ̀rẹ̀, àwọn Hausa ó débì kan tẹ́ pé àwọn bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí gbèsè yín àwọn ará Niger. Ó máa yà yín lẹ́nu pé nínú Niger yẹn àwọn kì í ṣe Hausa nìkan ló wà ń bẹ̀, àwọn Shua Arab wà ń bẹ̀, ṣùgbọ́n torí pé àwọn ẹbí wọn wà nínú orílẹ̀-èdè yẹn, wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀ pé ara o, Nàìjíríà gbọ́dọ̀ ṣe nǹkan tí Nàìjíríà sọ pé òun fẹ́ ṣe o, torí ẹ máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ pé kí ló dé tó fi ń sọ bẹ́ẹ̀, wọn ò ní sọ fún yín pé nǹkan báyìí ló jẹ́ káwọn máa sọ bẹ́ẹ̀, bọ̀ tẹ́yìn bá fetí sílẹ̀ dáadáa ẹ máa tójú bá farabalẹ̀ á rí mú, ẹ máa rí i pé ibi tó ń lọ ni wípé ọmọ ìyá kan náà làwọn. Why am I saying this? Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ Yorùbá tí ò bá tí ì gbé bí Ogun State, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí lè má yé yín. Bọ́n tó bá ti gbé Ogun State, especially ní àwọn sáìdì bíi Yewa, àwọn tó wà ń bí Ìlaro, tó máa ń ṣe pẹ̀lú àwọn Awori Saturn. At the point they did, yes. At some point they actually, yes. I think I was part of that conversation for a bit. Kí n tó máa wà sí club house bíi tẹ́lẹ̀ mọ́. Bọ́n tó bá wà níbi àwọn sáìdì Yewa, àwọn Ìlaro, Ọjà Ọ̀dàn, Ìbèṣè, ẹ máa ti rí pé ẹ máa rí àwọn Ọ̀họ̀rí, wọ́n máa ń lọ bọ́ ṣe máa ń bọ̀. Ìgbà míì gan ọkọ̀ ojú omi ló máa ń gbé wọn láti Ogun State lọ sí Benin Republic lọ tajà, láti lọ rajà, wọ́n á tún padà. As a matter of fact, màá lè jẹ́ kí PFA sọ̀rọ̀ tó bá ṣe díẹ̀ sí i. As a matter of fact, ó láwọn ibìkan tẹ́ lè lọ ní in fact, ṣé ẹ mọ̀, ẹ kí n fún example kan sí. Ṣé ẹ mọ̀, ẹ lè kọ sí comment section tẹ́ bá mọ̀ ẹ tí mò ń sọ yìí. Ṣé ẹ mọ̀ ẹ tó ń pè ní Bíléwu Ọ̀ṣọ́fà? Tí n bá sọ̀rọ̀, mi fẹ́ ṣàlàyé bọ́n ṣe jẹ́, bọ́n fẹ́ bèèrè bóyá kankan mọ̀ Bíléwu Ọ̀ṣọ́fà. Ṣé rí Yorùbá ni bàbá, ṣùgbọ́n ilẹ̀ Benin náà dàgbà. Àwọn náà bẹ̀rẹ̀ ìjọ Celestial, ìjọ mímọ́ Celestial látọ̀run wá, báyìí máa ń pè Celestial Church of Christ, ìjọ mímọ́ ti Kristi látọ̀run wá. Now, nísìnyí báyìí, the major, in fact, I think it's actually the majority in terms of Christians ní Benin Republic ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀. Ìmẹ̀kọ náà pé mẹ̀kọ nílùú ìyá wọn, bọ̀ PFA máa bá mi ṣàlàyé ẹ̀ sí. Ìmẹ̀kọ nílùú ìyá wọn. Àwọn kan sọ pé Benin ìlú bàbá wọn, àwọn kan sọ pé rárá pé Nàìjíríà ni. But the important thing is that he grew up there. And the important thing also is that while the Ìmẹ̀kọ is the capital, there are still people that travel to Ìmẹ̀kọ from Benin Republic as Yoruba people. And when you're having services, you don't even have to say, there's no language barrier in the conversation. Yes, there's English, there's French in their logo and all those things, but they could just speak Yoruba and have fun because in your Kondobowa. I said that to say that àwọn tó bá ń gbé àwọn border area, àbáwọn tó bá ti lọ sí church bíi Sẹ̀lẹ̀, ó máa yé wọn pé Yorùbá ò pín sí Nàìjíríà. So a wà ní Benin Republic, tá a pọ̀ dáadáa. Tó bá yá máa kàwé láti lọ, I'll mention the details, I'll go into the details much later. We're also in Togo, débi tó ń pè ní Atapame. Okay, Yorùbá dé gbogbo aṣàn dé gbogbo bẹ̀yẹn. Atúnṣàn dé ibì kan Ghana tó ń pè wọ́n ní Ga. As a matter of fact, people traveled from Ga to Nigeria, to Ife, láti lọ rí bàbá Ọ̀ọ̀ni, ìyẹn Ọ̀ọ̀ni gangan, láti lọ rí wọn. No, Fon are not Yoruba. I think Ewe most likely, but not Fon. Fon are a separate entity. Fon tí wọ́n bá Ọ̀yọ́ jà bí àwọn jẹ́ dá omi, wọ́n bá Ọ̀yọ́ jà bí makumaku. A jẹ gàba lórí wọn gbà kan, ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n ń ṣe Yorùbá. Wọ́n gba òmìnira tí wọ́n nígbà tó yá. Ṣùgbọ́n àwọn kan wà ní Ghana, àwọn kan wà tó yẹ pé wọ́n ti wà ń bẹ́ẹ̀ kì í ṣe pé bẹ́ẹ̀ ti kì í ṣe pé bí igba ọdún díẹ̀ lé díẹ̀, àwọn yẹn náà ń pè ní àwọn Brahma. Yes, Fon were conquered, they're not Yoruba, so Ajegaba, Ọ̀yọ́ conquer wọn, but kì í ṣe pé bóyá Yorùbá ni wọn. Eventually they got their own independence. So Fon people are a separate entity, and they are the ones that constitute the army. Mo kàn fẹ́ ṣe overview lélẹ́yìí o, a máa lọ sí details, and then later the details will be other people talking, then I'll come back with some books. So àwọn kan tó ń pè ní Brahma, àwọn ọmọ Brahma ní àwọn yẹn àti ìdàkàtì bẹ́ẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ àbífẹ́ náà ti lọ sí Ghana, àwọn Gáà yẹn àtọba wọn lọ sí ìlú Ilé Ifẹ̀ láti sọ pé ibi la ti wá o, ibi la ti ṣẹ̀ lọ o, àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Now gbogbo wa ní gbogbo orílẹ̀ èdè tàwa Ifẹ̀ la máa tọ́ka sí, ìbọn mú lọ bìkan ẹ ṣáà máa bá mi ká lọ. So a ní Nàìjíríà, a ní Benin Republic, a ní Togo, ibi tó ń pè ní Àtàpàmẹ̀. Àwọn yẹn ìgbà kan látijọ́ máa ń pè wọ́n ní Ifẹ̀ or Ufẹ̀ gangan náà máa ń pè wọ́n. Yes, so wọ́n máa ní ethnic group wọ́n ní Ufẹ̀. Ẹ jẹ́ kí n kọ́kọ́ sọ pé ó yẹ kí n sáré sọ ọ́pùsìn pé oríṣiríṣi orúkọ náà mọ Yorùbá sí ní oríṣiríṣi ibi ọ̀nà oríṣiríṣi ẹ̀yà wọ́n máa ń pè Yorùbá lóríṣiríṣi orúkọ. Àwọn kan máa ń pè wá ní Yorùbá, pàṣẹ pẹ̀lú àwọn Yorùbá yìí. Àwọn kan máa ń pè wá ní Olùkùnmi. Àwọn Olùkùnmi yẹn náà àwọn tó wà ní àwọn tó wà ó dà pé Yorùbá mi kan ti ń pọ̀ ju òyìnbó lọ. I just want to make sure that everybody is understanding, even if they're not Nigerian. That's the reason for this, right? Àwọn tó wà ní ìpínlẹ̀ Delta tó ń pè ní Olùkùnmi, àwọn yẹn orúkọ tó ń jẹ́ nìyẹn, ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n máa ń pe gbogbo wa náà ní Olùkùnmi. Fún àpẹẹrẹ ní Cuba, wọ́n máa ní àwọn pàtì àwọn ibìkan ní South America, wọ́n yìí ń pè wá ní Olùkùnmi títí lónìí. In fact, wọ́n máa ń pe ẹ̀sìn tó ń ṣe ní Lùkùnmi, bọ́ wọ́n máa débẹ̀ eventually. Wọ́n kó wá ní Ànàgó láwọn ibìkan. Tẹ bá rí ká àwọn document kan máa rí Nago, Nago, ẹ̀jẹ̀ tó máa rí Ànàgó, Anago, ẹ̀yà kan náà ni. Lùkùnmi yẹn wọ́n lè spell it as Lukumi or Lucumi, it's the same people. So oríṣiríṣi orúkọ náà ti pọ̀ wá ní oríṣiríṣi. Wọ́n tún máa ń pọ̀ wá ní Akú, especially ní àwọn àdúgbò bíi Gambia. Akú yẹn wọ́n mú nínú bá a ṣe máa ń kíra wa. Ṣé àwọn kan sọ pé Akú bíi ẹ káàárọ̀, ẹ kú ọ̀sán, ẹ kú alẹ́. Ṣé àwọn Yorùbá kò sí nǹkan tí a ní kíkí fún. Tẹ bá jókòó wọ́n ní ẹ kú jókòó, tẹ bá dúró wọ́n ní ẹ kú dúró àbẹ́ kú nàró, tẹ bá lọ sọ́jà ẹ kú ọjà, tẹ bá báyàn lé ẹni ẹ kú lé, tẹ bá kẹ́ni ẹ bọ́ níta ẹni ẹ káàbọ̀. Tẹ bá ń ṣe ọdún wọ́n ní ẹ kú ọdún, tẹ bá ń ṣe ìnáwó wọ́n ní ẹ kú ìnáwó, tẹ bá parí ìnáwó wọ́n ní kí ni ẹ kú ìnáwó, àbí bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́. Tẹ bá ń ṣòkú kí ló máa kí tẹ bá ń ṣòkú. Àwọn kan sọ pé ẹ kú wájú mi lónìí ẹ ṣeun. Tẹ bá ń sin òkú kí ló máa sọ pé ẹ má ní ẹ kú òkú. Tẹ bá ń sin òkú kí ló máa ẹ kú àṣẹ̀yìndè, ẹ kú àṣẹ̀yìndè.
Ẹ kú ọ̀rọ̀ èèyàn.
Tẹ bá ń sọ parí ẹ kú ọ̀rọ̀ èèyàn. So kúkú yẹn ti pọ̀, àwọn akúkú wá pè wá ní àwọn akú. And we already had this conversation where we said people are named, you could be named by yourself or by others. So you could have exonyms. So exonym yẹn ni ibi tí akú yẹn náà ti wá fi tẹ̀ mọ́ wa lára. Now, so Gambia, even in some parts of Senegal, there are Yoruba people there. Now, if you go back, years ago, as far back as 11th century AD, you had people who traveled from ilẹ̀ Yorùbá tó ń lọ sí àwọn ibìkan ní West Africa láti tajà. Àwọn míì ni wọ́n dúró sọ̀hún. Bàtàn dúró sọ̀hún wọ́n di ara wọn lọ́hùn. Àwọn kan wá láti ibẹ̀ náà tán di ara wa níbí bí. So lọ́rọ̀ kan bí tájí sọ̀rọ̀ sí ẹ̀sìn ni pé àdínkù l'Áfíríkà, a ti sọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà, a ti sọ̀rọ̀ Benin Republic, a ti sọ̀rọ̀ Togo, a ti sọ̀rọ̀ Ghana, a ti sọ̀rọ̀ Gambia, a ti sọ̀rọ̀ Sierra Leone, a ti Senegal, then Sierra Leone. Ṣé ti Sierra Leone yẹn oríṣiríṣi ọ̀nà ni Sierra Leone wà ní Yorùbá fi débẹ̀. Bọ̀yìn tó gbajúgbajà jù ni wípé now I'm going to have to switch to English. In the early 19th century, after Britain abolished slave trade or slavery generally, They did more than just sit in England to tell people what to do. They got on ships and made their way to Africa and intercepted Portuguese ships that would have ferried people from Nigeria or from West Africa to Brazil, for instance. So we know that Britain was also part of the slave trade at the time, but they also now abolished slave trade and began to intercept ships. Àwọn tó ń bá mú, àwọn tó yẹ kó wá ti capture people like Ajayi, Samuel Ajayi Crowther, for instance. A lot of them don't want to capture wọn ti fẹ́ lọ tà wọ́n. Tí ship wá intercept the ship with Portuguese. Àwọn akọ àwọn èèyàn bẹ́ẹ̀, they will now resettle them at a place called Freetown in Sierra Leone. Àwọn kan wà nù wọn tán ìwà ń bẹ́ẹ̀ dọ́là. Àwọn kan wà nù wọn tán padà wá Nàìjíríà. So ọjọ́ kan bóyá ọ̀la màá fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ èèyàn kan tán pè ní Shapara William, Dr. Oguntola Shapara William. Dr. Shapara fún àpẹẹrẹ ó náà pàṣẹ sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀ gan rí, ó náà pàṣẹ sọ̀rọ̀ wọn rí, báyìí asúnlẹ̀ sùn sọ tó bàjẹ́ màá jẹ́ ká mọ̀ nǹkan tá a fẹ́ sọ lọ́la ṣá. So irú àwọn èèyàn bẹ́ẹ̀ àwọn àti Sierra Leone làwọn ti padà, bó tiẹ̀ jẹ́ pé Ìjẹ̀ṣà ni bàbá Shapara, Ẹ̀gbá ni ìyá wọn, ṣùgbọ́n Sierra Leone làwọn náà bí wọn sí. Sierra Leone náà ti padà wá sí ìlú Èkó. A lè máa mọ̀ gan sẹ̀, as early as I think between 1901 and 1905, I think he actually opened a dispensary at Shaki, inside Shaki lọ́yọ̀ọ́. So àwọn tó padà wá ẹ̀ náà máa ń pè ní Sàrò. Àwọn tó padà wá ẹ̀ náà máa ń pè ní Sàrò. So lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ìgbà tó padà wá ibi méjì náà pọ̀ sí jù. In fact mẹ́ta ni actually, but méjì wà nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Àwọn kan lọ sí present day Rivers State, so you have Port Harcourt, Bonny. Àwọn kan lọ síbẹ̀ tó jẹ́ Sàrò. Àwọn kan lọ sí but ní ilẹ̀ tiwa ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn lọ sí Èkó àti Abẹ́òkúta. So táwọn pé àwọn èèyàn kan ní Sàrò just meant that they are returnees from Sierra Leone. But along the line àwọn kan àtẹ́kùn wọn ti di àwọn kan àtẹ́kùn àkópọ̀ mọ́ra wọn ṣá, but ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn nìyẹn Yorùbá ni wọ́n. Náà ẹ ká padà lọ sẹ́yìn díẹ̀. Ṣé àwọn pé àwọn tí wọ́n tán dá lọ́nà lórí omi tán kó lọ sí Sierra Leone tán wá padà sí Nàìjíríà là ń pè ní Sàrò, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn kan wà tẹ́ pé wọn ò dá lọ́nà. Àwọn yẹn ti lọ, wọ́n ti kó àwọn èèyàn lẹ́rú lọ sí South America. Àwọn tó kó lọ South America yẹn wọ́n kó wọn lọ sí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ní wọ́n kó wọn lọ sí Brazil, wọ́n dẹ̀ fojú wọn hàn èèmọ̀. Ṣùgbọ́n tí n bá padà wá a máa ka àwọn nǹkan kan nípa àwọn yẹn. Ẹ máa rí wọn ní Brazil, àwọn Yorùbá ẹ máa rí wọn ní Brazil, ẹ máa rí wọn ní Cuba, ẹ máa rí wọn ní Venezuela, ẹ máa rí wọn ní Trinidad and Tobago, ẹ máa tún rí wọn ní Jamaica. Àwọn yẹn wọ́n wà ní Caribbean and South America. They are also Yoruba people. And the powerful thing about them, we're going to talk about it today, how they were able to retain their culture, how they were able to maintain their culture, regardless of the fact that they were taken away from their ancestral land, and they still practice. As a matter of fact, let me tell you one funny thing. There's a place in Brazil called Bahia that you could go on the streets and literally get akara. Wọ́n máa ń pè ní àkàrà jẹ. Àkàrà jẹ náà ń pè, ṣùgbọ́n àkàrà kọ́tà ń pè àkàrà náà ni, ẹ̀wà náà fi ń ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ni. Yes, àwọn Yorùbá kan náà lọ sí 80, ẹ ṣe Mr. Ogunda. So you have Yoruba spread across into places like that. So you're talking Jamaica, you're talking Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, and of course Colombia as well, and of course Brazil. Àti wá dé become Brazil pé èdè Yorùbá gan ti wá gbilẹ̀ ní Brazil ti wá di ìkànnù àwọn èdè tí wọ́n ń sọ. Àwòrán Saxon, Gary is still eating widely in Brazil. Absolutely. It would make sense because àwọn Portuguese náà wà lára àwọn tó fi ẹ̀gẹ́. By the way, I said it in passing some weeks ago that many of our ancestors that they deify never ate eba because Portuguese ló fi gbàgùdà wọ́n fi hàn wá through ìṣẹ̀kírì. The Portuguese actually introduced cassava into our lands through ìṣẹ̀kírì. So àwọn náà introduce cocoa. They introduced that to us as well, but our soil could take it. Our soil could support its growth. Akọni Puerto Rico, no eba slander. Ẹ̀yin Ẹ̀gbá àti Ẹ̀gbádò àti Yewa, I think ọdẹ máa ń fi ẹ̀gẹ́ ṣe. Ẹ káre àwọn orí Saxon. Àtàwórì náà, Puerto Rico too. Yes, I've heard that as well. I've heard that as well. So àtànká, àtàn gidi gan, àwọ oríṣiríṣi àwọn ìlú. Àyè tí n bá padà wá, máa sọ, no, Bayonle, cassava as a whole was introduced by the Portuguese. We didn't have cassava before the Portuguese introduced it to us. And they introduced it through the Shekiri. And now, when we're talking about Ege or Baguda, it sounds like it has always been here, but no, it wasn't. Anything before the 15th century, you will not find cassava in Yoruba land. You will not. And now Nigeria is like the highest exporter or producer of it. Cassava is not native to us. Interestingly, cassava was one of the crops that were introduced into the East by Sam Ajayi Crowther in 1857. So we had it long before they got it, but I think it also helped them. Cocoa as well came in through the Portuguese. Cocoa is not native to Yoruba land. It came in, the Portuguese brought cocoa, but then we what's the word now? We owned it and made it ours until it became like, and then it thrived on our soil. So it's ours now, but it was introduced to us by see, one of the good things about Yoruba is we will acknowledge where we got things from. Tàbí àwọn kan tó pé ó lálẹ́ wù ni. Àwọn yẹn tí wọ́n dà pé nǹkan ti san, orí wọn ti san. Torí anybody tó wá ti sọ pé nǹkan báyìí Yorùbá ṣe fún wa ní irọ́ ni o, ṣùgbọ́n tá a bá mú nǹkan, tá a bá kọ́ nǹkan láti ibì kan, á sọ fún yín báyìí ló ṣe rí. Iṣu fúnra ẹ̀ ń sìn, iṣu àwa la ní iṣu ti wà láti ìgbà ayé, láti ayébáyé ni iṣu ti wà nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Mo lè sọ ìtàn iṣu tó lé ní ẹgbẹ̀rún ọdún kan nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Obì, orógbó, àwọn nǹkan tó jẹ́ tiwa nìyẹn. Wọ́n ti ń ta obì láti ìgbà Saturn, little saga máa fly high hard. Yes, because Yorùbá ní òwe kan, wọ́n ní nǹkan lẹyẹ ń jẹ kágbàdo tó dé. Inú òwe yẹn láti máa mọ̀ wípé ó ṣeé ṣe kó jẹ́ pé wọ́n mú àgbàdo wá láti ìta ni. As a matter of fact, I think that's actually what it is. But Yorùbá gangan ní òwe yẹn pé nǹkan kan lẹyẹ ń jẹ kí àgbàdo tó dé. Nǹkan táwọn kan ń jẹ látijọ́, iṣu, wọ́n jẹ iṣu ju nǹkan míì, wọ́n jẹ iṣu nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Iṣu ọ̀pọ̀ iṣu ló ń di iyán, iṣu ló ń di àmàlà. Then nǹkan tá à ń fi iṣu ṣe pẹ̀lú àmàlà yẹn náà la wá fi ẹ̀gẹ́ ṣe pẹ̀lú láfún. So iṣu, èṣùrú, ọ̀gẹ̀dẹ̀ àgbagbà, our fruits, I think many of them, ọkà bàbà, millet. I think ọkà bàbà is ours. I think so. Ata, aláta, alẹ́fọ̀ọ́, a ní ọ̀dùnkún. Ọ̀dùnkún will be sweet potatoes. Thank you. I always ask them, but aláta, alẹ́fọ̀ọ́, bóyá tẹ̀tẹ̀ ni o, àbí ṣọkọ, àbí ìgbàgbá, àbí ewúro, àbí efinrin. So all those things are native to us. Cocoa. Okay, one cocoa is native to us. Yes, I think corn is native to the Aztecs. They introduced to and that's why Yoruba will say nǹkan lẹyẹ ń jẹ kágbàdo tó dé. So I think it makes a lot of sense because it becomes almost impossible for you as a Yoruba person to imagine anything being eaten by and all of that. Kí àgbàdo tó dé. Amúnútutù ẹ ṣe, amúnútutù gbúre, that's water leaf. So àwọn nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ tó jẹ́ tiwa wà. Àwọn nǹkan tó jẹ́ pé wọ̀rọ̀wọ́, ẹ̀fọ́ pọ̀ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Ẹ̀fọ́ pọ̀ gan nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Amúnútutù náà tún pè ní sàfàrà. So we have native food, but we also have things that were introduced to us. Tàbá yẹn sọ̀rọ̀ lọ́mọ máa sọ̀rọ̀ débi ọjọ́ mo sọ pé tó bá máa di bí ọdún tó ń bọ̀ máa sọ̀rọ̀ lórí bí ìgbàgbọ́ ṣe délẹ̀ Yorùbá. The first time that kọ́ nígbàgbọ́ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá was in the 16th century ní Ilé-Ifẹ̀. Of course láti Ìṣẹ̀kírí náà gbà wọlé. But ara nǹkan tó tún mú wá náà ni àwọn èso. Àǹtọ́rẹ́ mọ̀ sọ pé ìgbà míì nǹkan òkèèrè lè jẹ́ bùkún fún èèyàn tí èèyàn bá farabalẹ̀ láti mọ ìtàn tí èèyàn kò can not just throwing tantrums. You understand the fact that cocoa is not native to us, but cocoa became the bedrock, the mainstay of our economy because we owned it. So you can own foreign stuff and make it yours, right? Most of what we celebrate in Yoruba land today, we celebrate because of cocoa. So yeah, that. So we have people all over those places. Now, where I was going with that is that some of the returnees from Brazil are the ones we call Aguda. There's a place in Lagos called Poco Aguda. We also have palm trees, different varieties. And from palm trees, we had Epo, we had Ogusho, we had Emu, we had another species that gives Oguro. We had Tete or Tete. We had all kinds of things from palm trees. So palm tree is also native to us in Yoruba land. So Tebagbo Aguda Ojelabe Gesi Owe Yobani, but actually a recent Owe. It's not like 1,000 years ago. It's very recent. And Atuche Chris, Ajayi introduced cassava to people that are closer to Warri than you. Chris, are you asking a question or you are being funny? Because Yoruba already has the cassava.
Ignore one.
Boya Kima Kabi. Okay. My ignore, because there are books to make this thing happen. Me, I don't do all this. My father, your father said. I'll read the books out for you now. But again, I'll listen to Tiwa. So the Bagbo Aguda Ojelabe Gesi iṣẹ́ ọwọ́ wa tó wá jẹ. Although bí kò jọ àbòsí kò jọ kan ní ọ̀rọ̀ òwe yẹn, but Aguda tó ń sọ, àwọn kan máa sọ pé àgùntàn Ojelabe Gesi kì í ṣe àgùntàn o, it is Aguda. And they are trying to highlight the relationship between the Portuguese and the British. Aguda is also Aguda is what you call British. Ijo Aguda is what you call the Catholic Church, because the Portuguese introduced Catholicism to us, right? The Portuguese introduced Catholicism to us. So we call their church Ijo Aguda. We call the people from Brazil as well Aguda, because again, remember the Portuguese colonized Brazil. Till today, they still speak Portuguese in Brazil. So, àwọn tó padà láti Sierra Leone, Seko, náà là ń pè ní Saro or Saro. Yeah, Saro làwọn tó padà. Now, àwọn Saro yẹn, àwọn kan wà nínú wọn tó jẹ́ pé láti ilẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ni bàbá wọn, Abẹ́òkúta ni bàbá wọn, àbí nǹkan bẹ́yẹn. So, ṣùgbọ́n nísìnyí wọ́n ti di ara. There's a document from 1895 tó máa kọ people in Lagos Island at the time. Àwọn tó wà lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ máa rí Èkó ń bẹ̀. Èkó yẹn is like a mix of those people and àwọn Àwórì tó wà ń bẹ̀. Wọ́n ti wá di like a separate group. So that's the Saro. Then you now have àwọn tó wá láti Brazil. Tẹ́ bá ń gbọ́ èèyàn bíi Darosha. I'm saying bí Yorùbá ṣe máa ń sọ, if you spell it, it's written as Darochas. His own father was an Ijesha man from Malaysia. But àwọn náà kọ́kọ́ ibi omi tán ta omi fáwọn èèyàn ní Lagos Island. It's called Waterhouse, right? So Darocha, for instance, they returned from Brazil. Àwọn náà pè ní Aguda. So Saro wá láti Sierra Leone, Aguda ló padà wá láti Portugal. Gẹ̀ẹ́sì were a large number and had larger influence. Yes, ṣùgbọ́n Aguda wojú Gẹ̀ẹ́sì kó tó jẹun. Tó bá ní ọwọ́ ò lè ní ọwọ́ tó ọmọ tó bá ní owó ò lè ní owó tó ọmọ Darusha. Yes, he was very rich. He was so rich, they took his clothes to England for dry cleaning. That was how rich Darusha was. They took his clothes to England for that. And it's crazy because there were no planes. I sit down and I just think about it. There were no planes. So ship don't have a question about buying law for me. Oh my God. So it's good to have money. But yeah, so that's just like a broad overview of the influence of Yoruba. As we go deeper in the conversations, I'll talk to us about the Candomblé, we'll talk about Santeria, we'll talk about the syncretism of religion, the influence, the staying power of the Yoruba tradition in the Caribbean, the explanation for that particular phenomenon by scholars. We're going to get into all of that today. But for now, I think I've given us like an overview of what we'll be discussing. And one of the things that will also happen is that as we go on in these conversations, àwọn Yorùbá tó wá láti oríṣiríṣi ẹ̀yà nílẹ̀ Nàìjíríà, àbí tán wá láti ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ṣùgbọ́n tó ń ṣe ara ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà àwọn náà máa wá sókè wọn á bá wa sọ̀rọ̀ mo fẹ́ kàn sọ ìtàn wọn fúnra wọn kó má jẹ́ pé àníra máa sọ ní tí máa fẹ́ sọ lónìí máa súnmọ́ àwọn ti South America more than the people in West Africa because I want them to actually tell us their own story so that way we're also able to learn. And if we have Yoruba people from diaspora, please feel free. We also have Yoruba, for instance, in North America. Àwọn tán kó lẹ́rú lọ sí North America ńlẹ̀ Yorùbá wọn ò pọ̀, you know, ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n wà. A tún wá níbì kan ní North Carolina nsìn yìí tí wọ́n ti ṣe bí ìlú tán pè ní Ọ̀yọ́túnjí. Àwọn yẹn wọ́n they are more like I'll call them like naturalized citizens. Some of them have now claimed to be, you know, part of us, and they're welcome. Yeah. So, and then also Tabatin Soro, I'll tell you like, okay, the waves of slave trade that resulted in Yoruba people being taken to the Americas, and how we got there much later. And your daily badge please come up. That Nova Scotia, Canada thing, that is not an impossible. It's not an impossibility. It is very, very possible. But if you don't mind coming up so you can maybe go deeper into it. But so that's like the overview. My sharing drones, my dark idea and things so that other people will be able to add to the conversation. So like we're doing today is a very interesting day. We're mixing Yoruba and English because we have Yoruba people from other countries who don't speak English. And then we also have Yoruba people who don't speak Yoruba very well but understand English. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's keep power tapping, and then now I'm going to pass the mic to Omoba. Kashi, ladies first. Kamashi PFA. Omoba and Leo. Okay, I think okay.
And yes, and
Omoba, that's it.
Akuwaju láti kí látàrọ ẹkú ètò kò sí much tó sì fẹ́ dá sí mo ṣe ń listen with rapt attention at this time but later on.
Thank you very much now. PFA ọpọ sọkọ yẹn o.
Mr. Abusoye ẹkú iṣẹ́ takuntakun.
Ẹ wá sá.
Lágbára Ọlọ́run àwọn tí wọ́n ṣẹ̀ wá sílẹ̀ wọn ò ní fi wá sílẹ̀. Lágbára Ọlọ́run, their spirits shall continue to abide by us. I think one nǹkan kan ló common fún wa ń bí yìí òun ni pé a fẹ́ kí heritage wa a fẹ́ kó parun, a fẹ́ kí ilẹ̀ wa kó dilẹ̀ àjòjì mọ́ wa lọ́wọ́, not because of us. But probably because of but because of, you know, àwọn ọmọ àrọmọdọ́mọ wa. Gbogbo nǹkan tá a dẹ̀ ń ṣe yìí àwọn èèyàn lè máa mọ̀ ń sìn, but ká ní àwọn tó ń ṣẹ̀ wá sílẹ̀, ká ní wọn gbé àwọn ìgbésẹ̀ kan tó ti gbé tó fi ìjẹ́ Yorùbá tó fi fẹsẹ̀ rinlẹ̀ ni, ó ṣeé ṣe káwa má dé bá Yorùbá yẹn rárá. So though we are in another 100, 200, 300 years, all these little things that will actually become very useful for the Yorubas that will be living then. Lágbára Ọlọ́run, ní parun, lágbára Ọlọ́run. So, ọmọ Yewa lèmi. Fún ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ tí ò bá mọ̀ I already succeed. Okay, mama mú mọ́ra wọn. Fọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ tí ó bá mọ bí tí Yewa wà, ó ṣeé ṣe kẹ́ ẹ ti gbọ́ Ẹ̀gbádò rí. Àmọ́ nítorí àwọn political reasons kan. So the name Ẹ̀gbádò was changed to Yewa, and recently it got gazetted in the Nigerian constitution. For a very long time, Yewa, Ẹ̀gbádò ló wà ní Nigerian constitution, but I think in the last 2-3 years or so, ló ṣe wà officially gazetted. So that's that. Ibo ni the old Ẹ̀gbádò land, tó ń jẹ́ Yewa land in Ibo ló wà, is in the western part of Ogun State. So Anybody more politics Ogun State that I am we have 3 senatorial districts in Ogun State. The Ogun Central, which is the Egbas and the Owus. So mi ò fẹ́ pé Egba nìkan mọ́ báyìí nsìn. Man try láti pé Owu náà, so because they have their own identity as well. So the Egbas and the Owus in the Central, the Ijebus in the East. And for some of my Remo brothers who will want me to mention Remo, I'll say the Ijebu and the Remos in the East. And in the West, we have Ogun East. We have the Yewas and the Aworis in Ogun West. So, nǹkan tá à ń discuss lẹ́nìí gan, ṣe ló dàbí pé à ń sọ̀rọ̀ nípa kí a particular nation kan overflow lórí map. So kíní yẹn ṣẹlẹ̀ láàrin Ogun State àti Lagos State náà for my Awori brothers and sisters. Òun ló fi fà á tó jẹ́ pé the majority of Aworis are in Lagos State. Àmọ́ nítorí border creations, map and what not, bóyá nítorí ease of administration ni wọ́n ṣe àwọn nǹkan yẹn gbà yẹn ó wá jẹ́ wípé ní Ogun West náà a lot of Aworis are there. Mi rò pé ẹnìkankan máa wà níbi tí ò ní mọ ibi tó ń jẹ́ Sango Ọ̀tà ilẹ̀ Àwórì pọ́nbélé ni. Àgbárá ilẹ̀ Àwórì pọ́nbélé ni. Ìgbẹ́sà, Adó-Odò àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ, gbogbo ẹ̀yin ọmọ Àwórì kí ti gbé o. So nítorí political divisions yẹn ó jẹ́ kí Yewa àtàwórì ó jẹ́ ká súnmọ́ra wa gan. Not only that, we have, bóyá nítorí proximity náà ni, àwọn kankan wà tó pa wá pọ̀ gan bí oúnjẹ tá ń jẹ. Àwọn èdè wa gan ó dà pé ó fẹ́ yéra wa. Tán bá ní ẹni tí èdè Àwórì yé jù nílẹ̀ Yorùbá á fẹ́ jẹ́ Yewa ni, torí a wọnúra wa gan. As I speak to you, there are some Awori Obas that still attend Yewa Traditional Council. By the grace of God, I know a lot of Awori Obas and Awori sons and daughters working tirelessly for the creation of Awori Traditional Council as well. Something I'm very sure will come to fruition very, very soon. In fact, mo ní bàbá kan tó jẹ́ tọ́jọ́ lùgbà pẹ̀lú bàbá mi dáadáa tó jẹ́ very prominent Ọba in Awori land. So that's on the Awori side. But kẹ́ẹ̀kan lè understand bí map bí àwọn èèyàn ṣe máa overflow lórí map. So ká wá kúrò ní àárín Awori àti Yewa, ká wá lọ sí the topic of the day gangan, the Yorùbás in diaspora. So in Ogun State or in Yewa land, let me even put it that way. We have federal constituencies, we have state constituencies. So in Ogun State today, we have a state constituency called K2 State Constituency. That's in Yewa North local government. So in Yewa North local government. Okay. In Yewa North local government, so we have the Ishokon State Constituency, and then we have K2 State Constituency. Luckily for me, K2 State Constituency only limitiwa. So, Sherry, the people don't pay ni K2 kì í ṣe Nàìjíríà nìkan ní K2 wà. Then orúkọ ìlú kan tí ẹ wà tó ń jẹ́ K2 yẹn gan inú Benin Republic ní K2 yẹn wà. Ibẹ̀ ni Alákétu of K2, ibẹ̀ ló ti jẹ ọba. Àmọ́ nígbà tí mapping tó ti dé tán máa gé àwọn ìlú yẹn sí òkè o ibi yìí bọ́ sí Benin Republic o ibi yìí bọ́ sí Nàìjíríà o ńgbà yẹn lára àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá tán jẹ́ ẹ̀yà Kétu àwọn kan bọ́ sí Benin Republic wọ́n gé àwa kan sí Nàìjíríà. Ẹ dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé tán bá ń sọ̀rọ̀ nípa map ìlà tínrín ló ń jẹ́ boundary. Kò sí pé boundary fẹ́ jù òun ni kí ni inches block tán fi ṣe fence pé boundary fẹ́ jù nìyẹn.
9.
Àwọn boundary kan wà tó jẹ́ barbed wire ni. Ẹ dẹ̀ mọ̀ kí ni breadth barbed wire. At least a ti rí àwọn photos àwọn boundaries oríṣiríṣi nílé ayé yìí tó jẹ́ pé ẹ wo Mexico àti America ẹ wo Canada àti America tó jẹ́ pé kẹ́ẹ̀kan gbẹ́sẹ̀ kan kẹ́ẹ̀kọjá ni. Mo ti sọ lórí ìkànnì yìí rí dáadáa wípé lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ gbà mo ti lọ sí àwọn agbègbè kan ní ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà ni mo wà o àmọ́ tí n bá wọlé ẹnìkan try láti pè mí bọ̀ mo ti kọ́ tẹ̀ tí n bá wọlé lẹ́nu ọ̀nà níta láti Nàìjíríà tí n bá máa jáde sẹ́ǹkùlé wọn ilẹ̀ olómìnira Benin ni máa jáde sí. So tẹ́ ẹ bá lọ sí gbogbo èmi ní tẹ́ kọjá ọjọ́ ọ̀dàn tẹ́ dé area Òǹbẹ́ àwọn ibì kan ní Asá Ìbẹ̀kú all those areas wọ́n share border pẹ̀lú Benin Republic like direct border pẹ̀lú Benin Republic. Tẹ́ bá rántí ngbà kan tí àwọn darandaran tí wọ́n ń fi ojú wa hàn fìtínátì káàkiri nílẹ̀ Yorùbá wọ́n lọ sí àwọn abúlé kan ní nítòsí ọjà ọ̀dàn tán wọ àwọn abúlé yẹn lọ tán lọ ṣe àwọn èèyàn léṣe tán ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀. Some of our cousins and I'm talking bóyá some first cousins some second cousins wọ́n láti sá kúrò ní ẹ̀gbẹ́ Nàìjíríà ní apá Nàìjíríà ní Kétu wọ́n láti sá lọ sọ́dọ̀ àwọn siblings wọn àwọn family wọn ní Kétu eléyìí tó wà nù ilẹ̀ Benin. Ṣé rí tẹ́ bá wo map Ogun State bó ṣe gùn wá látòkè a ní to the north a ní kí náà ti ń pè Ìmẹ̀kọ Àfọ̀n to wá sísàlẹ̀ díẹ̀ a ní Yewa North wá sísàlẹ̀ díẹ̀ a ní Yewa South wá sísàlẹ̀ díẹ̀ a ní Ìpòkíà. Tẹ́ bá wo gbogbo map yẹn ẹ rí pé border Nàìjíríà ní gbogbo bẹ̀yẹn òun náà fi ń pe Nàìjíríà òun náà fi ń pe Ogun State ní gateway state because it's the gateway to other African countries. Of course tẹ́ bá ti dé Benin Republic ẹ lè lọ sí Togo ẹ lè lọ sí Ghana ẹ lè lọ sí other African countries. So bí ìyẹn ṣe bó ṣe wà ní kò sí kí náà ti ń pè ń bẹ̀. À ń sọ̀rọ̀ Ọ̀ṣọ́fà lẹ́ẹ̀kan. So bàbá Ọ̀ṣọ́fà ọmọ Ìmẹ̀kọ ni ìyá bàbá Ọ̀ṣọ́fà. Kò sí àní kankan kò sí arúnilójú kankan nú ẹ̀ kò sí kí náà ti ń pè ń bẹ̀. Ọmọ Ìmẹ̀kọ ni ìyá tó bí bàbá SBJ Ọ̀ṣọ́fà. Bàbá wọn ló jẹ́ ọmọ Benin Republic and bọ́n ṣe jẹ́ ọmọ Benin Republic náà tẹ́ ẹ bá wo àlàyé tí mo ṣe ìkan náà ni Yorùbá ò pé méjì àmọ́ ńgbà tí àwọn colonial masters tán dé tó di pé a fẹ́ ya map a fẹ́ gbé orílẹ̀-èdè kan fún Nàìjíríà kíkan máa jẹ́ Dahomey kíkan máa jẹ́ kinní kan òun ló di wípé àwọn Yorùbá kan wọ́n bọ́ sí ẹgbẹ́ ọ̀tún àwọn Yorùbá kan wọ́n fì sí ẹgbẹ́ òsì. So bàbá SBJ Ọ̀ṣọ́fà náà báwọn ṣe jẹ́ ọmọ Benin Republic tó ẹ mọ̀ wípé a kì í nílé bàbá ká má nílé ìyá tó ṣe bí òwe. So bàbá SBG Ọ̀ṣọ́fà ó dàbí pé wọ́n wá fara mọ́ ilé ìyá wọn bóyá ńgbà tí ìpédẹ̀dùn tọ́lọ́run pè wọ́n ó ṣeé ṣe kó jẹ́ wípé lára mẹ́sáàgì tọ́lọ́run fún bàbá Ọ̀ṣọ́fà òun ni wípé ibi báyìí ni kò ti lọ ṣe báyìí pé ibẹ̀ ló ti máa búrẹ́kẹ́. Tẹ́ bá rántí nínú ìtàn bíbélì wọ́n máa ń sọ pé àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì wọ́n fẹ́ lọ sílẹ̀ ìlérí. So bóyá lẹ́ẹ̀lérí bàbá Ọ̀ṣọ́fà òun ni Ìmẹ̀kọ. And for someone who comes from that area, I feel proud today because tọ́lọ́run ò bá sọrú yẹn fún wọn ni ta ló mọ̀ Ìmẹ̀kọ lè má popular. But ní gbogbo àgbáyé ń sìn yìí Ìmẹ̀kọ is known globally as a result of the Celestial Church of Christ. So
PFA mo fẹ́ dá yín dúró fún ìṣẹ́jú kan.
Okay.
Just to make something clear that ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń sọ̀rọ̀ gan ẹ̀yin ṣe sẹ̀lẹ̀ o.
Mùsùlùmí lèmi o.
Mo lọ díẹ̀ ni wọ́n yà pé ẹ̀yin ṣe sẹ̀lẹ̀ o ẹ̀yin ṣe kìsẹ́lẹ̀ o mo kò fẹ́ káwọn èèyàn mọ̀ ni.
And I'm proud of what Baba Ọ̀ṣọ́fà has brought to Ketu land. Sherry nínú Yewa North and Ìmẹ̀kọ Àfọ̀n local government méjèèjì tí mò ń sọ yẹn náà, the Ketu identity ó tún overflow nínú local government méjèèjì wọ́n jọ wà lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ ra wọn ni. So pre 1996 before 1996 it used to be Yewa North local government only. But ńgbà tó di 1996, they created out of Yewa North local government, they carved out Ìmẹ̀kọ Àfọ̀n local government with the capital or headquarters in Ìmẹ̀kọ. And then Yewa North local government ìyẹn ṣì dá dúró with the headquarters in Ayétòrò. I mean, some of us would have heard of Ayétòrò. You must have heard of Compro. There is a secondary school in Ayétòrò, very popular secondary school called Comprehensive High School Ayétòrò. They call it Compro. So you would have heard of that. And the current Olabisi Onabanjo University College of Agricultural Studies, ó wà ní Ayétòrò náà. So nínú two local governments tá a sọ yẹn, the K2 identity is present in the two local governments. You understand? So eléyìí ò ń ṣètàn àròsọ, kò ń ṣe nǹkan kan o. Ibi tí mo ti wá, ibi tí wọ́n bí mi sí ni. You understand? And ẹ̀yin àgbàlagbà sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ ní kò sẹ́ni tó lè mọ̀ ọ́ pọ̀n bí ọlọ́mọ tó ṣe bí òwe. So, and we know our identity. So our brothers and sisters are still on the other side of the map. The Alaketu, àwọn historians, Mr. Buzuyi, ẹ lè ṣàlàyé fún wa kí ni relationship Alaketu tó ọ̀nà wo ni Alaketu bá tán mọ́ ilẹ̀ Yorùbá láti Ilé-Ifẹ̀ and all that. You'll probably be able to explain that for us, maybe in another session. Ní òye tó yé mi yékéyéké ládùúgbò wa kò sí ọba tó fẹ́ jẹ tí ò ní lọ yọjú sí Alákétu. Tí n bá tiẹ̀ mọ̀ kankan rárá, mo rántí bàbá mi nígbà tí bàbá mi máa jọba. He visited Alaketu's palace. And Alaketu palace dáǹsọ yìí kì í ṣe nú the current day Nigeria ló wà o, Benin Republic ni o. Although from my hometown to Benin Republic, tẹ́ bá máa fi drive bóyá 30 minutes, 40 minutes, ẹ débẹ̀. You understand? So bóyá nítorí pọ́ náà tún dá nǹkan kan náà ló ṣe máa tó yẹn. So overflow wà tó jẹ́ pé àwọn Yorùbá kan bọ́ sí ẹgbẹ́ ọ̀tún, àwọn Yorùbá kan bọ́ sẹ́gbẹ́ òsì. But does that affect their being Yorùbá? I think I will say no, because tẹ́ bá débẹ̀ oúnjẹ tó ń jẹ ní Yorùbá side Nàìjíríà òun náà lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn ń jẹ ní Yorùbá side Benin Republic. And Ketu, we have a particular dialect tá a máa ń sọ. Bá a ṣe ń sọ ní the Nigerian side, bẹ́ẹ̀ náà là ń sọ ní the Benin Republic side. Mo bá ṣe sọ̀rọ̀ Ketu ń dísìn, ìyá ṣe sọ, ó ní yìí ń wà ní Ketu ti Benin àti Ketu yìí ń wà ní Nàìjíríà, gbogbo enílẹ̀ àjọ mẹ́sọ́ ni. So kò sí yàtọ̀. And Mr. Busui said something earlier, and I think we should look into this very well. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wa kó tó di wípé the divisions, the mapping, kó tó di pé ó dé before the demarcations láti ń jẹ́ Yorùbá. So Yorùbá predates the map. So for my brothers and sisters in diaspora, ẹ̀yin Ketu Benin, mo kí gbogbo yín o. One way or the other. And the beautiful thing ni pé ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ sì wọ́n fi Nàìjíríà sílẹ̀. Wọ́n fi àwọn siblings wọn ní tó bá dán fi àwọn siblings wọn ní Nàìjíríà sílẹ̀ ni. Irú example tí mo give lẹ́ẹ̀kan wípé when the Fulanis were disturbing us in that area, wọ́n ní gba àwọn brothers and sisters wọn from the Nigerian side, wọ́n ní gbà wọ́n láàyè kan wá farapamọ́ sọ́dọ̀ àwọn. I'll give another personal example. Láyé wẹ́ẹ̀tì bàbá mi, èmi ò experience wẹ́ẹ̀tì but bàbá mi ọba làwọn náà. Ngbà yẹn wọ́n lọ ká wọn mọ́ ilé tán da petrol sí gbogbo ilé tán finá sílé. But luckily mọ̀ pé àwọn wọ́n ní nǹkan tágbàlagbà fi ń jẹ̀kọ abẹ́ ìwé ló wà tó ṣe bí òwe o. Nígbà tán máa tún rí bàbá, ilé àwọn cousins wọn ní Benin náà ti rí wọn. You understand? Bàbá ò ṣe sá lọ sí ilẹ̀ Haúsá. Bóyá fẹ́ rí ni o, bóyá fẹ́ ni o, bóyá kinní kan o, kò ṣe gbé wọn lọ sí Onitsha. Wọ́n ní ta bá sùntì náà la máa ń jarun pálù. Kò dẹ̀ ní burú títí kó má kọ ẹnìkan mọ́ ni. Bàbá àràdẹ̀ kọrin ó ní tí mọ́nímọ́ní bá lóhùn mọ́ni, tí mọ̀nìyàn bá lóhùn mọ̀nìyàn. Bàbá ẹni ò ní ṣàìmọ́ ni, ìyá ẹni ò ní ṣàìmọ́ ni, ẹbí ẹni ò ní ṣàìmọ́ mọ́ wọn. So the closeness is still there. You understand? So the Yorubas in Ketu, the Yorubas in the Yorubas in Benin and the Yorubas in Nigeria are one Yoruba. Map yẹn lásán, tán kàn ṣe demarcation yẹn nìkan, òun ló yà wá sọ́tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀. But you know what? Even with the map nowadays, ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wa gan a ti reconnect. Mo send nǹkan kan sí Professor Labola a few days back. Ó ní man kan tí Buhari fún ní national honor ní 2023. We call him Gab, Mr. Gabriel. He's from a village very close to my hometown called Igbokofi. Igbokofi is a border town with Benin Republic. So, ó wá ní ọjà kan nínú Igbokofi yẹn, or the main ọjà Igbokofi. Àwọn ọlọ́pàá Benin Republic, wọ́n máa ń wá sí inú bẹ̀. Wọ́n á wá try láti extort àwọn èèyàn, gbowó lọ́wọ́ wọn, ṣe gbáṣàwò. Wọ́n ti ń ṣe kinní yẹn. Nígbà tó jẹ́ pé ẹ̀yìn odi ni, kò sí presence Nigerian government ńbẹ̀. Kò sẹ́ni tó yẹ̀ wọ́n lọ́wọ́ wò. So this Mr. Gab, ó wá jẹ́ ó dà pé clergyman ni wọ́n. So one bóyá apostolic or I can't remember. So àwọn wà ní Ìgbọ́kọ̀fin yẹn, ibẹ̀ náà ń gbé. So òun ló wá fight, ló pariwo kíní yẹn síta tó jẹ́ pé encroachment ti ń ṣẹlẹ̀. The Benin Republic government or officials, let me say, wọ́n ti ń shift map, the existing map. So wọ́n ti ń wọ inú ilẹ̀ Nigeria. So it was Mr. Gab that raised the alarm. Tó bá wọn jà, tó bọ́ra sílẹ̀, bí kò bọ́ra sílẹ̀ kó máa bá àwọn ọlọ́pàá Benin Republic jà, wọ́n ti arrest ẹ̀. Wọ́n arrest ẹ̀ tó di diplomatic kí náà ti ń pè. So ngbà tí ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn wá dariwo, tí Nigerian government, the border commission nkankan tán wá dá sí. Àní ibi báyìí nílẹ̀ yìí wà tẹ́lẹ̀, kò débi tẹ́ ń lọ yìí, ẹ má ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀, tán dẹ̀ resolve ẹ̀ tí Benin Republic fi mọ bí tí àlà wọn dé and all that. So in honor of that, wípé ká ní Mr. Gabo jàjà yẹn ni, ká ní kó sọ̀rọ̀ sókè, ká ní kí Nigeria government lè má mọ̀ nǹkankan, and that thing would have gone. So Buhari, I remember Buhari actually honored him, gave him a national honor in 2023 list. Is it 2023 or 2022? No, 2022 honor list. So you can always Google it. Igbokofi land dispute with Benin Republic. So ìyẹn wá mean wípé àwọn tán wà ní other side di Benin Republic náà tán súnmọ́ border ní Benin Republic tán jẹ́ Yorùbá tán jẹ́ Ketu, ìyẹn ò mean pé wọ́n ń ṣe Yorùbá o. Ẹ má jà gbàgbé ìyẹn o. So the what's it called? The Yorubaness has been in existence before the mapping. I think
before the arbitrary line drawn in
demarcation.
1885.
Yes, exactly.
Berlin.
Exactly. So I think for now,
thank you so much. Come back a question. Thank you so much for all those. Someone said you should speak on the current Lisa of Imeko.
Baba
I don't know
Lisa,
if there's a particular thing to say about. Okay.
Baba Lisa is.
It was me, but okay. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Do you know Lisa?
He's my daddy now. My godfather is one of my godfathers.
Okay. I just I want to Baba Lisa je godfather fún Aponi. So he's my very good father. Baba Lisa. All I can say about him is that he's my very good baba. Kò ń ṣe baba tèmi nìkan. In fact, baba mi ni wọ́n. Because àwọn èèyàn máa ń wà tó jẹ́ àwọn àgbàlagbà máa wà tó máa jẹ́ ọlọ́rọ̀ ara wọn, aláṣìírí ara wọn and everything. You understand? And Awori Saxon, if you know Baba Lisa very well, he speaks French. Do you know that?
He speaks French. He's majored in French.
Hey, thank you very much. He studied in France. And
but he has a bachelor's degree in French.
In French, yes. Mm-hmm. And Baba only drinks decaf coffee.
So what I wanted you to speak on is in the spirit of pe Yorùbá ni wá.
Okay.
Yeah. So Baba Lisa, màmá wọn ni ó wá láti Meko.
Láti Meko, yes.
Bàbá wọn Ketu the other side, Ketu
no Benin, yes. That's correct.
Ni wọ́n ti wá.
Yeah.
But oyè wọn náà jẹ́. Anybody tó bá mọ ìtumọ̀ oyè Lisa ní ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Nígbà tó máa fi wọ́n jẹ oyè, wọ́n sọ story yẹn fún mi fúnra wọn ni. So ìgbà tí wọ́n máa fi wọ́n jẹ oyè yẹn, wọ́n ní àwọn kéré díẹ̀ ńgbà yẹn pé ẹ̀rù tí ẹ̀dẹ̀ wá ń bà wọ́n pé àwọn ní Nàìjíríà ọba tó fi wọ́n jẹ wá pè wọ́n àti màmá wọn, wọ́n pè wọ́n pọ̀, àwọn méjèèjì pè wọ́n sọ fún wọn pé ṣé Yorùbá ni àbò kì í ṣe Yorùbá. wọ́n ní Yorùbá làwọn tó bá ti jẹ́ Yorùbá ni ẹ́ fi gbogbo yòókù sílẹ̀ pé èèyàn ò dẹ̀ kí ń nílé ìyá kó má nílé
bàbá bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
tí àwọn aráàlú Mẹ̀kọ bá ti rí i pé ó dángájá báwo lẹ ṣe ń sọ kinní yẹn ó sùn ní gbangba lọ́yẹ̀
ó tó gbangba
sùn lọ́yẹ̀ that's the word láti jẹ oyè yẹn and that's how he was honoured with the title of Lisa of
Imeko land.
So even though paternally and interestingly orúkọ bàbá I can't say his name because obviously I don't have his permission to do that. Orúkọ wọn kò sí orúkọ wọn Yorùbá pọ́nbélé ní orúkọ wọn in fact gbogbo orúkọ àwọn ọmọ wọn dẹ̀ wá rèé bó ṣe wá jẹ́ wípé àwọn paternally Benin ni wọ́n bíi ká sọ pé Nigerian nationality ni wọ́n mú dání ni wọ́n ń lò òun náà dẹ̀ ni wọ́n pass on sí gbogbo àwọn ọmọ wọn.
títí kan last born.
gbogbo àwọn ọmọ wọn ni mo mọ̀ so that's why I wanted it so that when you were making examples and talking about your dad and your granddad I wanted you to use a living example that we know.
Okay. You see, and nǹkan tá a máa ń sọ pa ọ̀rọ̀ ilé ayé yìí òun nìyẹn. It's a very small world. Here I am. Here is Awori Saxon, and we practically we share the same godfather. Demo. You understand? So that tells you wípé ọmọ Yorùbá kò síbi dá a kanra wa bákan. Ìbáàjẹ́ ń Kútọ̀nù, ìbáàjẹ́ ń Benin Republic, ìbáàjẹ́ ní kí wọ́n ti ń pè. We will touch each other.
Nigeria. Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So the Baba Lisa we're talking about, me lè má oṣù kan ti pẹ́ jù máa bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀. Tí n bá pè wọ́n á pè mí ọmọọba ó tọ́jọ́ mẹ́ta tí mo gbọ́ wọn o. You understand? In fact, Awori Saxon, èmi àti bàbá are close débi wípé I remember those years tí mo ń ṣe NYSC. So my father wanted me to be redeployed back to a particular state. So because of Baba Lisa's what's it called? So he contacted Baba Lisa and èmi mọ̀ ń pé Baba Lisa lẹ́yìn pé ẹ má dà pọ̀ sí lóhùn èmi like ibi tí mo wà yìí o ẹ jẹ́ n wà níbi tí mo wà yìí o mo enjoy ẹ̀ báyìí o so we are very very close in fact máa pè wọ́n lọ́sàn-án yìí so
I wanted us to kind of speak on Baba, like I said, because he's a living example that is still with us.
And he's still alive. In fact, we can, if we need to, we can get Baba to speak here. I'm very sure.
Absolutely,
he will
come. He's very happy to do things like this.
Baba on boys la man pe.
Yeah, so, if you call
I'll speak to him this afternoon.
Yeah.
And there is another very important person from Imeko land. Bóyá nítorí pé àwọn tí ẹ wá láti Imeko ló ṣe jẹ́ nǹkan táwọn major nú ẹ̀ nìyẹn. Professor Asiwaju. Asiwaju
is a historian, yes.
Historian and an expert in border studies.
Hang on, is Professor Asiwaju not Ewe?
Ewe, as in EWE, tribe.
Maybe.
Because the reason why I say so is because his name has only orúkọ wọn ní àwọn egun kìíní yẹn lára. Onso àbí onfo, so something like that, sha.
Ibi tán ti wá yẹn, àdúgbò yẹn, because of the proximity with the Republic of Benin, it is very, very possible. Okay, ó ní ọ̀rẹ́ bàbá mi kan tán jọ ṣe kékeré, but tán bá máa dárúkọ Solomon la máa ń pè dádì yẹn, but tọ́ máa dárúkọ wọn wọ́n tún lè tọ́ máa dárúkọ wọn gbà mí wọ́n tún lè pè wọ́n ní Wesu so bóyá bàbá wọn ti lọ fẹ́ ẹni tí ó jẹ́ pé the part of Benin Republic Republic du Benin táwọn ti wá ó kọjá the Yorùbá area wọ́n ti bọ́ sí òkè díẹ̀ so it's very very possible because of the proximity and you know these people were mainly their traders wọ́n á máa lọ sọ́jà kan àwọn alájàpá they go from one village to the other ó lè jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ti ríra wọn tán ti fẹ́ra wọn so tán bá máa wá sọmọ lórúkọ ó ṣeé ṣe kọ́mọ yẹn lórúkọ méjì orúkọ kó lórúkọ tó pọ̀ àwọn orúkọ tó máa jẹ́ ti pure Yorùbá máa wà ńbẹ̀ èyí tó máa jẹ́ pure names of other tribes tó wà ní Republic du Benin á wà ńbẹ̀ so it's very possible.
Yeah,
but, what I know about Professor Asiwaju is that he's a very one of the best historians and border experts we have in Nigeria today. Kolon shi ba wa lore mi àwọn bàbá yẹn dáadáa.
Yes.
So I'll speak to Baba Lisa.
Thank you so much.
We'll see if we can get him on here. And Baba is very, very IT compliant. So don't worry, Baba will install TikTok. Baba
exactly. If he doesn't have it already, he's very tech savvy.
Baba will set everything up. So
yeah. So let me
that would be lovely.
Very, very briefly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, PFA.
You're welcome,
fantastic.
Sir. Yeah.
So still speaking
please go on. Our research. Go on, PFA. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, sir.
On Ogun State. Well, although this will be very small, is Adodo. Right. So Adodo is the last local government in that Ogun West Senatorial District. Well, one of the towns in the remaining local government in that senatorial district that PFA mentioned. So remember how it's
mentioned the 4. Yeah.
So he mentioned 4. So Ado-Dota is the 5th one. So in Ado-Dota
population, please remember that.
Okay. So I am from Ado-Dota now, so you have to know that I'm not going to But anyway, so Ado-Do is a town in Ado-Dota local government that has.
I always ask on Ogbeni Tanimola Imeko is in Nigeria, not Republic of Benin. Imeko is in Nigeria, but the people that are there, some of them are also related with other Yoruba people. All of us in Yoruba land, whether we are here or there, we are connected. But Imeko is actually in Nigeria. Continue our words, Action.
So let me help you there. The people of Imekos are Ketus. So you know how we have Oyo, we have Egba, we have Egun, we have Awori. Àwọn tó wá láti Imeko.
Okay.
Yeah. So Ketu ni wọ́n. So àwọn ará Ketu wà Egba.
Ṣé fún mi ṣẹ́jú kan.
Go for it.
Ṣé fún mi ṣẹ́jú kan.
Go ahead.
Oh, maybe he has a call.
I want to play something from Oba Alaketu. So so one of the things that PFA said was that Entove Jobani, that the PFA Joba, but because he's part of the K2 subgroup. So like we said, it's like mathematics. There's a set. The set is I want to play the video. The set is Yoruba, but there's a subset. That subset would be Ekiti. It could be Gbomina. It could also be K2. Inside the K2 now, you now have elements. Those elements could be in Benin Republic or in Nigeria. So I get what you're saying right now, Nigeria. I think it makes a lot of sense. It explains it. So the people in Imeko are from. Yes, as a matter of fact, this the same thing. So, but this is the Kabesi Alaketu of K2.
Ọmọ Odùduwà oko Irun Àkànní Adédùnlóyè Adérọ̀mọ́lá àkọ́bí Odùduwà ọba ìlú Kétu ní kí gbogbo ẹ pé àkú ẹwọ ọdún Ìláfú èyí àfẹ́ ṣe lọ́bẹ̀ ní 20 oṣù kẹjọ ọdún ń pe gbogbo ọmọ Benin, ọmọ Odùduwà níbikíbi wọn, ọmọ Benin, ọmọ àfi gbogbo yín kẹwàá ká gbàjọpọ̀ kájọ ṣe nítorí ọdún ìṣẹ̀ṣe láfú ti gbogbo ènìyàn Kétu ti gbogbo ènìyàn gbogbo ìgbìlẹ̀ kánkán lè sì ń pè kì í ṣe tó ní ẹ̀kan iṣó ni a sì péjú ṣe é ni o nǹkan kan níyà sí lágbára Ọlọ́run lágbára ẹ̀dá bí inú ìní ẹdùn ayọ̀ ìní ẹkún ire owó ire ọmọ ire àlàáfíà lẹ́ẹ̀wọ̀lú Ìkétu lásìkò òwúgbà àfiṣe ọdún kẹta Ọlọ́run ẹ yí gbogbo ọmọ ẹni wọ́n ẹ̀sán olóko rẹ̀ iṣu ọmọ ẹ jiná fún gbogbo ẹni àjẹ a kò ní mú sàárè ọmọ gbogbo ọmọ ẹni wọ́n wà nílùú òkè wọn kúrò òkè wa nulẹ̀ ẹ̀ka mi mọ̀jọba ìlú kẹ̀ máa pẹ́ lérí ìtẹ́ bàbá mi ẹ̀ka ẹ̀kẹ́ kò ní jábọ́ bíhìn pé ń dé lérí ìtẹ́ bàbá mi eku ẹ mẹ́ẹ̀ké bí eku ẹyẹ mẹ́ẹ̀ké bí ẹyẹ ọmọ òní ẹ fọhùn bí ọmọ òní àgbà ẹ kí ọ bùsùn aboyún ẹ bíwẹ́ oníṣòwò ẹ rírì jẹ oníṣẹ́ ọwọ́ ẹ rí ṣe àgbẹ̀ ẹ roko bọ́dún dé ọkọ̀ ọba àdá ọba kò ní ṣáná kàn ní lẹ́sẹ̀ o lágbá Ọlọ́run lágbá ẹ̀dá bí ẹnu sì kọ́ fún yín ṣe gbogbo àdúrà kẹ ẹnu Ọlọ́run ọgbà ní fún yín ṣe nítorí àgbà màmá fìtọ́ náà pé ọ ní asán ẹnu gbogbo lọ́balọ́ba ìgún mẹ́rẹ̀ẹ̀rin ayé mọ̀gbà lè ń fún ṣe ẹnu gbogbo lọ́balọ́ba ilẹ̀ Áfíríkà mọ̀gbà lè ń fún ṣe ẹnu gbogbo lọ́balọ́ba ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà mọ̀gbà lè ń fún ṣe ẹnu gbogbo lọ́balọ́ba ilẹ̀ Benin mọ̀gbà lè ń fún ṣe ẹnu gbogbo lọ́balọ́ba ilẹ̀ Odùduwà mọ̀gbà lè ń fún ṣe ẹnu gbogbo lọ́balọ́ba ilẹ̀ Kétu mọ̀gbà lè ń fún ṣe o ọba ìlérí ọba ṣọpàṣán ọba òwe ọba àjọjẹ ọba ẹrankíkan ọba àgbò àkọ́kọ́ ọba ìtẹ́ ọba kòrí ọba ìṣù ọba àparun ọba àyẹ̀gẹ́ ọba àdẹ́múfẹ̀kún ọba adéwọrí ọba adétutù ọba aládé ìfẹ́ àti gbogbo lọ́balọ́ba nkọ̀kà ilẹ̀ ó sì dọwọ́ ẹ̀ pamọ́ sọ gbà ní kórè o lágbára òṣàmákàlẹ̀ gba ìwọ̀n àná èkejì lágbára aláró alápárò kúdàbá ọba makin àìtàn ńlá olóró gbégbé ìdènà gbogbo ìhà méjèèjì olípẹ́pẹ́ ayé ilé ayé oko àti wá ọjọ́ àti wọ oòrùn tó ọ̀dà ṣe ìyá mi o.
Kábíyèsí o.
Kábíyèsí o.
Ara mi kàn dìde ni. Gbogbo ara mi ló ń dìde bá
yàrá mi ò ní wọ̀n o.
Gbogbo ara mi ló ń dìde.
Nínú gbogbo nǹkan tó ń sọ yẹn, Mr. Busuyi, nínú gbogbo nǹkan tí kábíyèsí sọ yẹn, ẹ rí wípé there are some elements of the normal Ọ̀yọ́ Yorùbá tí gbogbo wa mọ̀ dáadáa tó ń jáde ń bẹ̀. Wọ́n ní eku aké bí eku, wọ́n ní eku ẹké bí eku, ẹyẹ ẹké bí ẹyẹ ọmọ ènìyàn ọ̀hún ẹ̀fọ́ ńpa ọmọ ènìyàn ọ̀hún.
Kò tiẹ̀ sí nǹkan tó ń sọ tá a gbọ́. Gbogbo ẹni bá gbọ́ Yorùbá dáadáa.
It's because we are one people and the commonality of language.
Ṣé mọ nǹkan tó fọ́nì ni pé bí bàbá yẹn ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ ọkọ mi ń béèrè lọ́wọ́ mi pé àṣejẹ̀bù náà ń sọ yẹn. Mo ní kì í ṣe Ìjẹ̀bú o.
So that is my dialect.
Meanwhile, you are in Nigeria, he is in Benin Republic, but you share the same dialect because you are the same subgroup of the larger Yoruba group.
We're the same people. So Ọba Aládé-Ifẹ̀ tó dárúkọ last yẹn ni the previous Alaketu, that was the Alaketu that my father visited in preparation for installation.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the show person that they first mentioned is actually the one who led the people out
the
of
people
Ife
from
on the way to
Ife
Ketu.
down to Ketu. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And then himself, his nephew, Owe, and then I think by the third one, they were not able to eventually settle at the place called Ketu. They went through Ife, they went through the parts of Ibtamakwenibi, on side the Barapa, not Balo,
exactly.
Thank you very much. And sorry, in the comment section, it is Yoruba, but it's a dialect of the Yoruba. So Yoruba is the language.
And it's different. It's different from Ohori as well. So
it's very different from Ohori.
If you hear the Ohori, in fact, Ohori va sọ̀rọ̀ nbí sí Agidi. Èmi gan tí mo wá láti bẹ̀rẹ̀ Agidi ni máa fi gbọ́ nǹkan tó ń sọ. But they are very close to us. They're very close to us.
But are they Yoruba?
I want to. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because I've heard them speak before, and I'm like, I heard more. Oh yeah, me got on so, but one sound a lot different. But
okay, again for example. Tohori va Davis and hey shy. Call for. kọ́ ọ fọ̀ kí ló ń fọ̀ kí ló ń
kí ló ń
sọ
sọ.
kọ́ ọ fọ̀ lé tó ń sọ yẹn ó sọ pé ta nìyẹn lé.
Oh.
You understand? So their own Yorùbá is ìṣe ló dàbí ká lọ sí Ìkàrẹ́ Àkókò ká lọ gbọ́ Yorùbá tiwọn wọ́n dojú ẹ̀rù pátápátá. You understand?
Okay.
So
Wow.
so the Ohoris are different from the Ketus as well, but because of the proximity, you will see some similarities as well.
Absolutely.
So even
I just saw something.
oúnjẹ tá ń jẹ à ń pè ẹ̀fọ́ kan ní ẹ̀fọ́ yanrìn yẹn, and I mean
Yes.
a ti sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀fọ́ yanrìn bí rí dáadáa, so ẹ̀fọ́ yanrìn yẹn a máa fi jẹ ẹ̀kọ, ó wá ní ẹ̀kọ yẹn a máa ń pe ẹ̀kọ kan ní àfàsígbá, so tán bá ti rò ó tán ṣe wọ́n máa dà sínú tray tó fẹ̀ dáadáa, so ó máa tutù ńbẹ̀ wọ́n á wá kọ́ ibẹ̀lẹ̀ tí wọ́n máa kọ́ tẹ̀. So that's one similarities between the Ketus and the Ohoris. There is another thing. One of our best delicacies, we call it hota. So hota is grilled or smoked fish. Bí ẹja tútù, ẹja sardine, àbí ẹja ṣáwá tó ń yan. Wọ́n á mú atarodo, wọ́n á chop atarodo, irú woro, wọ́n á kó sí iyọ̀, ẹ lè rọra fi magí díẹ̀ sí, ẹ lè ta òróró tíntínní sí.
ẹ máa ti ń ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ẹ̀.
Irọ́ ẹ wà ní ìsìn ẹ kàn máa fọwọ́ ru ẹ fọwọ́ squeeze ẹ máa squeeze ẹ pọ̀, so tẹ bá wo bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ata yẹn sì wà tútù, you understand?
Yeah.
But tẹ bá rí fùfú abẹ́kọ pẹ̀lú ẹ máa gẹ́ra yín jẹ ni, so that's Ketu for you.
Okay.
kí ló fi yàtọ̀ sí káwọn eléyìí ń jẹ kéèké báyìí sìn ẹ má jẹ́ ká bú.
Àbí. Meanwhile, ọ̀rí tí mo dárúkọ yẹn, ọ̀rí tá a dárúkọ yẹn mo fẹ́ sáré kàn kankan pa wọn.
Okay.
Pé mo ti gbọ́ wọn rí mo lọ láàrọ̀, mo rí àwọn ọ̀rí bọ̀ mí kò yé mi. So nǹkan tí mo rí sí ni pé wọ́n ní they are majorly in the southeastern Benin north of Pobe or Ipobe.
Yes.
Wọ́n sọ pé Ipobe town. Wọ́n sọ pé they are also in they are also in Nigeria. They are in Ipokia, Yewa North, and Imekwa from local government.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but ní ọ̀rọ̀ pé àwọn Ọ̀họ̀rí, àwọn Ìfọ̀nyí, àwọn Àwórì àti Kétu, Ìfọ̀nyí àti wọ́n ní àwọn Àwórì àtàwọn Kétu pọ̀ báwọn Ìfọ̀nyí àti Ọ̀họ̀rí náà máa ń pè ní Nago ní Benin Republic. So apparently Àwórì náà wà ní Benin Republic.
Yes, so I was going to speak to the Àwórì side now.
Okay.
Ẹ jẹ́ kí Àwórì side do Àwórì side.
So now on the Àwórì side, níbi tí a ti connect is Adó-Odò. Nítorí pé Adó-Odò's, in the days of old, migration tiwọn náà, extension tiwọn ó extend bí how mo fẹ́ describe ẹ̀ wọ inú Port Novo. So where àwọn ará Kétu àwọn lọ sí the Kétu side of Guinea bí south nísàlẹ̀ ní Port Novo níbẹ̀ ni the Àwórì people across the border as well. And just as you have it in Imeko, is how you have it also in Adó-Odò, where you have relatives just across the border. In fact, interestingly, till today tá fi ń sọ̀rọ̀ yìí, there are people in Adó-Odò tó jẹ́ wípé wọ́n ń gbé Adó-Odò ibi tó ń gbé proximity wọn sí Benin, bí kan rán wọn lọ sí school ní Benin, bí kan fẹ́ lọ sí hospital kan lọ sí hospital ní Benin, because rather than kan jáde sí ìgboro bóyá wọ́n wá sọ́tà wọ́n lọ sí Ìlaro ó ti jìnnà.
Wọ́n kàn gbẹ̀yìn lọ.
Wọ́n kàn lọ sí ibẹ̀ yẹn kan gun machine kan gun ọkọ̀. So then the river that kí ló ṣe ń pè PFA mentioned, that Yewa River. That Yewa River also flows through Benin Republic. So remember how in Yoruba land the way we share economics and resources. So that river was a major economic resource near Igba Tijo in older terms. So because of that, ó jẹ́ kí àwọn tó migrate kan continue láti máa jọ ṣe pọ̀ where bí mo wà lókè odò àbí mo wà nísàlẹ̀ odò did not really separate people. So as of today, in fact, before we get there, during the Dahomey wars, nígbà tí àwọn Dahomey gba òmìnira under Ọ̀yọ́, tí wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí máa wá attack Yorùbá townships, Ado-Odo was one of those places tí a lot of Yorùbás sought refuge.
Thank you.
So yes, so a lot of Yorùbás left where they were and moved into Ado because Ado-Odo was able to they were able to kind of resist that incursion by the Dahomeans and even the Egbas, àwọn ogun àtijọ́ yẹn. So nítorí ẹ̀, a lot of neighboring Yoruba townships used Ado-Odo as a haven, a safety haven,
a place of succor.
Yes. And so torí pé àárín àwọn èèyàn wọn náà wà. And if you go to Ado-Odo town today, you will see Àgọ́ Ṣàgá, Àgọ́ Kétu, Àgọ́ Kìnìkan, where all these people settled and remained. And today they've remained, nothing has changed because Yorùbá ni gbogbo wa, èdè kan náà là ń sọ, oúnjẹ kan náà là ń jẹ, àwọn forebears kan náà ni gbogbo wa jọ share. So that arbitrary lines that were just drawn on a map to separate us, realistically almost 200 years later, has not really separated us. People have maintained relationships with their kith and kin across those arbitrary lines. In fact, when I was a child, one of the things that we used to do is that Ọjà Àjàṣẹ́, there's one big market in Àjàṣẹ́ that we used to go to. Tó bá ti tó àsìkò Iléyá, a máa ń lọ síbẹ̀ láti lọ raṣọ ọdún.
Yes.
Their textiles were very, very famous. So gbogbo àwọn èèyàn tó dàgbà ní àdúgbò wa yẹn ló mọ̀ ń pa pé èèyàn ń lọ Àjàṣẹ́ lọ raṣọ. Even till now, a lọ ń raṣọ ọdún níbẹ̀. Then for those who are probably kí Nàìjíríà tó di báyìí, if you hear that one law import smoked fish in the south, ìfọ̀yìntẹ̀dọ́ tá a sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan yẹn, Jámọ́ the Benin side ni wọ́n ti lọ ń kó ẹja yẹn wá. Also in the spirit of pé ìkan náà ni wá, we eat the same food, we share the same world view. So going to a particular market and then sọ̀rọ̀ gbogbo àwọn nǹkan tá à ń sọ yẹn, àwọn nǹkan tó ti wà láti láéláé ni, and people continue to maintain those, what I would call filial relationships. And I don't think anything will sever them, because if you see me, in fact, one of the things I really want to do is to just go around that area. I have not been to Àjàṣẹ́ or any of those places since the last time I was there was probably like maybe 12. So mo fẹ́ padà lọ kí n tún lọ gbafẹ́ ńbẹ̀, And today I know plenty of people who, when they feel like they are stressed or they are whatever in Ado-Odo, they will just go across the border to go and spend some time there because they're a bit more orderly. Well, not a bit. They're a lot more orderly than we are. Apart from that, they're a lot more orderly. They're like, as a people, there's something in the Nigerian air that makes us disorderly. They're a lot more orderly. So sometimes when you crave order, it's a place to go and just chill and get some, some much needed order, I suppose. So, I just thought I would speak to that part. There are also similar people in, say, places like Erua and Lanlate in Oyo, and also parts of Kwara actually that share this same Kinita and Soy. So they have the same familiar relationship across the borders. But to jẹ́ pé torí pé wọ́n ṣe fa line ní maps yẹn ni ó separate wọn, but people haven't exactly seen themselves as different because some colonial powers came and put a line on the sand to say you are this and you are that. So over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Aori Saxon and PFA. I really appreciate your submissions. We're going to get to South America in a bit because I think there's a lot to discuss there. And I'm going to just as a sort of preface, I'll be reading a history of Yoruba by Professor Stephen Banji Akintoye. And also, there is something that Tiwa has graciously posted on the Telegram group that I think everybody should take advantage of. There a couple of books, and there's an encyclopedia that you put there as well that I'm going to read from. There's an encyclopedia of diasporas, and also there's another one, the Yoruba diaspora in the Atlantic world. So we're going to be reading from those two books. Plus the one by Professor Akintoye. But I'd like us to still speak a little about our people in other parts of Africa, and then we'll get to the Americas in a bit. So, Babawori, I want to thank you for being here, and also Makolok. All right. So, we're going to have Babawori first, and go for Makolok afterwards. So, we're speaking on Yoruba and diaspora. We're trying to establish the fact that the people they're not all that exist. That apart from the fact that we have Yoruba in southwestern Nigeria, we also have Yoruba in 10 states, in 4 other states, making 10 in Nigeria, who are indigenous to the land, who own their own land. They are not there to greet people or to we have Yoruba spread across all the states of Nigeria, but they own land and spaces, ancestral spaces in 10 states of the Nigerian Federation. And beyond that, we also exist outside Nigeria in parts of Africa. And like I always mention, there's something about using the present national structures to define ethnic identity. It's like you're shortchanging yourself, because when they were drawing the arbitrary line in 1885 in Berlin, they did not consult us. If they had consulted us, we wouldn't even want to have our brothers in other countries cut off like that. So Yoruba would have been a massive behemoth all the way from all the way from, I don't know, maybe Gambia or Togo at least, to Nigeria as indigenous people. So we have that. We're also in North America and in South America. And I'll be reading those books just to get us up to speed. But while we're getting ready for that, we're still talking about báwo la ṣe tàn mọ́ àwọn èèyàn wa tán wà ní Benin Republic, torí Benin Republic ló súnmọ́ wa jù. And nǹkan kan mo ti gbọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ kan tó lóyún jẹ́ pé ó tún ṣojú mi sí nǹkan. So ọba kan wà, máa wò bóyá mo lè rí àwòrán ọba yẹn jẹ ní Benin Republic náà ni, ṣùgbọ́n nígbà tó ọba yẹn jẹ, ìgbà tó fẹ́ lọ sí Ilédì, ṣé Ilédì ni Ilédì náà ni, ìgbà tó fẹ́ lọ sí Ilédì, ilẹ̀ Yorùbá náà, ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà náà ti wá ṣe. Máa wò bóyá mo lè rí ẹ kí n fi fọ́tò yẹn hàn yín ká tó tẹ̀síwájú sọ̀rọ̀ tá a sọ.
Ilédì kọ́, ilé awo, ilé ìpàdé awo Ilédì. Ìpèbí lọba máa ń lọ.
Ìpèbí, ẹ ṣe mo mọ̀ pé mo wrong mi kan, mọ̀ kọ́ tó yẹ kí n sọ ni. Ẹ ṣe Ìpèbí, àtọ́fẹ́ lọ sí Ìpèbí, Nàìjíríà náà ti wá sí Ìpèbí. Mo fẹ́ bá máa rí ọba yẹn. Ok, mo ti rí ọba yẹn. Ọba Onípópó or Grand Pópó. Nígbà tó ọba Onípópó máa lọ sí Ìpèbí Ọ̀ràngún, Ìlá Ọ̀ràngún lọ́ba yẹn ló ti lọ ṣe àwọn nǹkan táwọn àgbà máa ń ṣe nípẹ̀bí. Ó lọ sí ẹ̀kínsáré kan kọ fún yín nínú ọ̀rọ̀ tí bàbá yẹn sọ. Please, Makoloka, I keep muting you. If you mute yourself again, I'm going to have to drop you, please. So here, the newly installed Onipopo of Grand Popo in Benin Republic, Obadeshina Fagbemi Alausan Elekeche, has entered Ikpebi within the Orogun's palace in Ila, reasserting his roots and bloodline. This significant ceremony reverses the disruption caused by European colonization, which fragmented Africa and erased cultural identities. According to Yoruba history, Oduduwa's grandchildren founded various kingdoms. The Olowo Kingdom now has several offshoots, while the Alaketu is in Benin Republic, and the Oba of Benin identifies as Edo. Anyway, the point we're trying to make here is that just like what PFA was saying, that his own father had to, visit the Alaketu in Benin Republic. This Oba from Popo in Benin Republic also had to visit the Orogun of Ila in Nigeria because Arasof Group Kononowa. So it tells you that regardless of the arbitrary lines that were drawn by the colonialists, the people still know who they are and they're still connected. And just in case you don't know, now you know. We're going to continue with Baba Wori, and I'll come a bit more later to read some things about the American connection, so to speak. Mr. Marco, I can't remember your name now, but I'll just put you down. If you want to come back up, please kindly request. It's possible that you are not the one unmuting yourself. Perhaps it's just the app glitching. But now that I put you there, if you come back up, we'll be able to work. We'll be able to work it a lot better. Thanks for understanding. Baba Wori, please. Baba Awori. I doubt dear.
Ẹ káàárọ̀ ńbẹ̀ o.
Ẹ káàárọ̀.
Yeah, mi ò fẹ́ dá sọ̀rọ̀ nígbà tí ìyá Wori ń sọ̀rọ̀. Táwọn ìyá wa bá ń sọ̀rọ̀, a máa ní láti dákẹ́ ni bọ́n ṣe sọ gangan. But when you were listening, when the Kabiyesi was talking, the one you played, right? It also mentioned Apa. I don't know why you people keep skipping Apa. Alapa told me that people always skip him, so I should let people know that on one bell.
Arabolalapa, Ilubolalapa wa ṣé Awori ni àbí Ketu?
Àwọn Awori ni àwọn ló ní Badagry. So wọ́n border Ketu. So àwọn ni in fact oko wọn ló wọnú Port Novo, gbogbo Badagry. So they are just border with Ketu. In fact wọ́n ló gba àwọn Ègùn lálejò bá ṣe sọ rí. So it's a place that a lot of people don't talk about a lot, but it's an Awori kingdom.
All right. Sure. Thank you for bringing that to our notice. I think it's important to remember some of these details as well. Ijoba, no. Olowu is not Oromila descendant. Olowu's mother is actually the daughter of Oduduwa. And I've never in my life had any connection between Olowu and
Usui, that's those are the vestiges. Remember that Owulakoda, when those Owulakoda.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the kind of statements that birthed Owulakoda.
Just to make it clear that Anshara, Anshekini kan Ajubai
law, yes. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that today.
We won't go there.
So
that's a deep conversation. But yeah.
So another thing Timothy saw, right? Just as with PFA and Awori Saxon, right? Growing up, there's this Ya is Yado. In fact, you know how we name people by where they came from, right? And that's one of, in fact, you can't even tell. Yado, my mom still has Then there's
yeah, méjèèjì ló correct. Méjèèjì are terms that are used that are part of Yorùbá lexicon.
But ebu ni apẹ̀rẹ̀ àjàṣẹ́.
When you call your daughter, you can do something like that. So
no. Bígbà tí wọ́n ṣe iṣẹ́ rí àwọn tó ọlọ́mọdé àyàgàn, àwọn tó bá jágàn náà máa ń sábà fi bú. Àbí àwọn tó bá ń bọ̀. Àbí àwọn tó bá ń lo ọkọ jẹ́ kẹ́sìn ọkọ jẹ́ obìnrin ó lè jẹ́ abilékọ bọ̀kọ́ jẹ́ obìnrin tó yẹ pé why invest so Tony? I want to be politically correct.
Promiscuous.
But the point is that, in fact, let me even sing the song to you. Wani
wọ́n pè é ní Sisi inú rẹ̀ ń dùn ó máa rá Èkó ní má sọ ẹ́ dàpẹ̀rẹ̀ àjàṣẹ́
exactly.
Oh jeez. So man, I don't know how.
So wọ́n pè é ní Sisi inú ẹ̀ ń dùn ó mọ ará Èkó wọ́n á sọ ẹ́ di apẹ̀rẹ̀ àjàṣẹ́. In other words, by the time you look back after a few years wọ́n á ti lò bí omi ẹ̀fọ́.
That's a job from anyway, Kuno so not in Lagos State. A cooking on so
in
anyway,
terms of
the point you make.
and they sorry bàbá wòrí wọn sọ pé ọmọ Èkó wọn ní ará Èkó.
Okay. So yeah, just throw that jab, don't worry. Towards the time if I padawa. So anyway. So you know until recently, right? I didn't even know that Lusada. So Ojataman law, Aman Siajashe, Lusada. These are regular markets, and I did not even know that we are going to our respective villages, right? It's until this myself I began to now begin to go to all these places. One wow. So Google is not, I used to think those things are like overseas or something. It said like this whole division. Seriously, I wish they can do something because Alakpa really specifically told me that their farms are still in Benin Republic right now. Oko. Imagine how Nigeria just came, or the British or whoever, all on split everybody, and this relationship is something that is strong. Even within Nigeria, this Lagos Ogun State, within their war is becoming some kind of to say it. You look at the place like Lasu, and what to Nile Lasu, some of them show Ogun State in Be, and right across the water, we're talking about Igbesa, we're talking about Iteku, right? And the people there are not even qualified for indigenship bursary in Lasu, all because of one artificial state creation. Meanwhile, the land itself, one man interconnectivity with the land. You see the Oniba, his family is on the other side of the river, is in Ogun State. Same thing with Amotowa, border side beyond PFA. So this has really brought some pain, especially to the Awori people per se. And a lot of people would not even talk so much about us. Now, that's the western part of our land. Tabatun will not see the eastern part, which is entering into Lagos. You see that state boundary dichotomy between Ikeja, Dodo. You see, like we always say, Ado. We also look at people like Igbesa, Olonile, Oshodi, right? But look at how the state has made it look so distant. So whatever it is that we need to do going forward, right? For me, my aspiration is I want to see my people united, all their worries, and the Yoruba as a block. Because we are dealing with our Yoruba in diaspora, right? You see, we have not even left the boundary. Now we are talking about, you see, I will not take say Ajashe is Yoruba diaspora. It's not. Àwọn Ketu Yoruba diaspora. That's Yoruba mainland. Diaspora is when you start talking about Sierra Leone, on Totikuro in the original mainland, because the Yoruba is not a Nigerian thing. No, I mean diaspora to what? I will Saxon, because is it Yoruba in diaspora to Nigeria?
Are they carrying the same passport as you?
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's what makes them diaspora.
Then to Nigeria near then. Anyway, I will stop there. You shall see the complication, Busuyi, right?
No. That's what we're saying. We're talking about Yorubas in diaspora. And the reason why we talk about it this way is because we're not saying that some people are more Yoruba than others. I don't like the word Yoruba mainland. It's because a larger proportion of us were caught into Nigeria, and our relations, apart from the ones that were carted away, were out of, they had no power, nothing, they couldn't do anything about the fact that they were
in diaspora.
Just hang on.
Okay.
They were caught into other countries. Now they are forced to have an allegiance to another country. Even though we have we share ethno-linguistic, the same ethnicity, and based on the same, linguistic characteristics, culture, tradition, food, you name it. But they're in a different country. So the only reason why they are diaspora is because the majority of us were cut into Nigeria, and they were cut outside of where the majority of us are.
I think I understand both of you. I think what Baba Ori is saying is the fact that they are indigenous to that space from Igbalai.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
ilẹ̀ wọn náà dẹ̀ tí lọ́sìn occupy, unlike irú àwọn ṣe yàtọ̀ tẹ́ pé wọ́n kó wọn lọ síbẹ̀ ni àbí àwọn kan tí wọ́n kó wọn lọ síbẹ̀ ni.
Exactly.
So irú nísìnyí báyìí àwọn yẹn ilẹ̀ wọn yẹn ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ni kó tó di pé àwọn òyìnbó dé rárá. So regardless of the fact pé wọ́n gé wa wípé bí a kà má kó wọn diaspora, bó ṣe rí from the mindset of a Nigerian nígbà míì, for the mindset of a Nigerian nígbà míì ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ Nigerian gan especially the power láti ẹ má kí n dárúkọ state kó dàbí jab again. There are some states in Nigeria, some people actually think everything revolves around that particular state. So wọn tí mọ̀ nǹkan tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní southwest dépò wọn mọ̀ nǹkan tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní other states of Nigeria, dépò wọn mọ̀ nǹkan tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní Benin Republic, for instance. So in that sense, yes, I get his point, but I also understand what Awori Saxon is saying is that from a Nigerian perspective, there will be diaspora. But maybe from a Yoruba perspective, of course, they will be in their homeland. I hope that kind of ties both together. But I think it was already I was writing in the comment section that let's go back to the Americas. So I want to read something to us, and I'll be reading, like I said, a few books, but let me just start with a history of the Yoruba people by Stephen Banji Akintoye. If you're in the Telegram group, you will be able to access that book. It's in the repository. So let's discuss the Yoruba diaspora a bit from the perspective, of course, of the Atlantic slave trade. So let's go. It's going to be a long read, but I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. The Atlantic slave trade was not the first agency that established elements of the Yoruba as settlers beyond the homeland. And I'll explain what. So the funny thing is that even what Awori Saxon is also saying actually makes a lot of sense. And you know why? There are some Yoruba people in Benin Republic today that have not been up to. Yes, it's not their own homeland, but law, they can still trace themselves back to Ife, if you got what I mean. So maybe that's where she's coming from. All right. So as earlier pointed out, I think I also mentioned it earlier. As earlier pointed out, trade had before then resulted in Yoruba settler colonies in many distant places on the African continent. Before and during the centuries of the Atlantic slave trade, colonies of Yoruba traders lived in Nupe, Hausa, and Kanuri towns in the north, in Benin in the southeast, in probably every sizable Aja town in the west, and probably as far away places as the Valley of the Senegal in the west and the Valley of the Congo in the east. So I was saying earlier that when we talk about trade in ancient times as it relates to Yoruba people, some people actually bought the song, just like what the Ogomosho people have done in Ghana and the Ejigbo people have done in Cote d'Ivoire. A lot of Yoruba people back in the day, I'm talking 11th century, 12th century, 15th century, they traveled all the way to Congo, all the way to Senegal, and some of them stayed back there and even formed a colony. Let me quickly also say something. We're having a conversation about Benin the other day, and I mentioned how when Benin would have a sizable number of traders in a particular Yoruba town, they will form a traders colony. Now, what the Benin was doing is not peculiar to Benin, is what people do. I mean, it's essentially what you still see in Alaba in Lagos today. What's happening right now, what's happening in that sense is that the people have formed a sizable number in Lagos trading, so they are forming a community. The same thing was what Benin was doing. The same thing was what Yoruba people also did in different parts. So before Atlantic slave trade, we had a form of diaspora community or diaspora communities, but it was essentially made up of traders who went into those spaces, who ventured out of Yoruba land to Senegal, to Congo. And that's why I said that I'm trying to ensure that we don't reduce it to, the slave trade, because if we do, then we're not going to be able to capture that. Now, we also have people that move into Nupe side. So the connection that Hausas, Nupe people, and Kanuri people have had with Yoruba, it goes back centuries. And I remember last week we were talking about something, and someone said, "Oh, if you say this about the Igbo, we have to say it about the Hausa." And I was like, "No, you can't." And the reason you can't is that with these people, you've had centuries of interaction. You've had a situation where Hausa people have, been housed and accommodated in Yoruba land with mosques built for them in the marketplaces. And you also had Yoruba people having colonies as far away as the Kanuri space. And so why is that important? So that you understand the fact that before the whites got to Nigeria, some people were already relating. And the people that Yoruba people related with most as far as trade was concerned in the north was the Nupe, the Hausa, and the Kanuri. And of course with the Benin down to the east, but nothing really, when it came to certain parts of Nigeria. So let me just read that part again. Before and during the centuries of the Atlantic slave trade, colonies of Yoruba traders lived in Nupe, Hausa, and Kanuri towns in the north, in Benin in the southeast, and in probably every sizable Aja town in the west, and probably in as far away places as the Valley of the Senegal in the west and the Valley of the Congo in the east. To this must be added those Yoruba who ended up as slaves in Dahomey in the 19th century. Together, all this amounted to a very sizable Yoruba diaspora, unrelated to the transatlantic slave trade. Moreover, there are fairly clear indications of the impact of Yoruba culture in at least some of these distant lands. For instance, the impact of Yoruba political culture and language among the Edo and the Aja, the widespread influence of Yoruba trading practices, and the influence of Yoruba religion among various peoples in West Africa. What the Atlantic slave trade did was to lengthen the reach of the Yoruba diaspora beyond Africa to the Americas, as well as to Sierra Leone, and to create extracted and mixed African communities within which the Yoruba culture came to offer very significant cultural contributions. Now, the interesting thing about this whole slave trade thing, I don't know if I should get into it now. Okay, I will say what I want to say. But let's keep our tapping, please. I want to appreciate everybody who has spoken here and those in the comment section. Please, I'd appreciate if you could just keep our tapping so that way we can keep the live going. There's something I want to read before I say what I want to say. I think is important. This is Akintoye, A History of the Yoruba Peoples. Yoruba people were latecomers to the enforced transplantation of Africans as slaves across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. The Atlantic slave trade started in the 16th century, but hardly any Yoruba were recorded in the trade until the 17th century, and these were very few. From about 1750, starting with the beginning of the troubles in the Oyo Empire, the number of Yoruba slaves on the slave ships began to increase. It then increased rapidly as the 19th century opened, reaching a peak in about 1826 and remaining more or less at that peak until 1850. From about 1850, the number declined and continued to dwindle until about 1867, when the transatlantic shipment of Africans as slaves finally ceased. The number of Yoruba taken to the Americas as slaves, from the first in about the late 16th century to the last ones in about 1867, has been estimated to be about 1.12 million, representing a little less than 9% of all Africans taken to the Americas as slaves during the 3 centuries of trade. Of this number, nearly 80% were taken away in the century between 1750 and 1850. So the impact of Atlantic slave trade in Yoruba, you would actually see a lot of it between 1750 and 1850. But we had a few people that went there. Now, why is this important? And this is actually where I'm going with all this conversation, especially in the Americas. If you had just about 9% of the entire slave population that was taken into the Americas, how come everywhere you go in the Caribbean and in South America, how come you might as well still be in Yoruba land in terms of their outlook and their worldview? How, and this is the conversation I want us to have now. I'm going to read some things and then maybe we'll talk about it. How were we able to keep the religion, the culture, the worldview of Yoruba people how were we able to make it thrive in those far-flung places? Meanwhile, you're just a tiny percentage of the entire slave population. You're at 9%. But in 400 years, people are still 300 years, people are still talking about Yoruba religion, Yoruba culture, Yoruba this, Yoruba that. Like I said earlier, in Bahia, you can literally eat akara from the streets, just like you buy akara in Nigeria. So what gave us that staying power? And that's one of the things we're going to be discussing in this section. And hopefully, before we're done, we're going to have some of our people from Benin Republic and I think it's Togo or Cote d'Ivoire. They'll be able to come back and also be part of this conversation. So let me just keep reading. So we know that the entire population of Yoruba people that were taken into the Americas were about 1.2 million, 1.12 million thereabout, and that they constitute 9% of all Africans taken to the Americas. So we're going to be asking some of those questions. Let me just read something here. And so you find Yoruba slaves were taken to most regions of the Americas, from the area of Chesapeake Bay in North America to that of Rio de la Plata in South America, as well as to many of the islands of the West Indies. So you will have various sizes of Yoruba slave groups emerged in Virginia in the US, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida in North America. And then some of the countries in Central America like Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Panama, and others. And then you have in Guyana, Suriname. By the way, Davido was there to perform some years ago. They're crazy about Nigerian music in Suriname. Venezuela and Brazil in South America. And then you have Cuba, St. Dominguez, which is Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Guadalupe, Martinique, or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Martinique, St. Lucia, and so on in the West Indies. In only 3 of these destinations, namely St. Domingue, of course, that's Haiti, the large island of Cuba, and the province of Bahia in Brazil, did Yoruba slaves constitute sizable percentages of the total numbers of African slaves. Estimates of Yoruba arrivals in these 3 destinations vary. According to recent estimates, a total of 700,000 African slaves were received into Haiti, of whom about 173,000 originated from ports on the Bight of Benin. That is the coast of modern West Nigeria and of the republics of Benin and Togo. Of the 173,000, I'm going somewhere with this long range here. Just stay with me, please. Of the 173,000, about 25% to 30%, or 43,000 to 57,000 were Yoruba. An estimated total of about 564,000 African slaves were taken to Cuba, about 85% of them during the 19th century alone. Since for some years of the 19th century, the Yoruba constituted the largest single ethnic group being exported from the coast of West Africa, slave imports into Cuba contained large numbers of persons of Yoruba origin. And so it is estimated that about 12% of Cuba's African slaves imports were of Yoruba origin. That's about 68,000 people. The Portuguese colonies in South America, which by 1822 became together the independent country of Brazil, were the destination of some 3.5 million African slaves imported from about 1550 to about 1850 to various parts of the country. Of these, about 25%, that's about 850,000, originated from West African ports. The rest from West Central Africa, that's the area of Congo and Angola. From 1800 to 1850, the total number of Yoruba arriving in various provinces of Brazil rose much higher than before. And from then on, the group name Mina came to be applied specifically to the Yoruba slaves in most parts of Brazil, except in the province of Bahia, where they were called Nago. I already mentioned how people call us by different names: Nago, Anogo, Lukumi, Yoruba, Aku, and so on and so forth. So let's just go back into this. The name Nago is believed to be derived from Anogo, a common name by which the Yoruba people were known among Dahomey and other Aja people, from among whom many slaves came to the Americas in general and to Brazil long before the arrival of the earliest Yoruba slaves. So they were there before Yoruba people also got there, so they just kept calling us that when we got there because they were from Aja. Aja people, I think they're also like a subgroup, so part of them, of course, were the people in Dahomey. So when Yoruba people got to Brazil, they basically just called them, or they used to call them back home. What was the reason why Yoruba were shipped out? Was it because of war? Yeah, the decline of the Oyo Empire actually affected Yoruba space in a crazy part, because Oyo was the single force that was able to kind of keep everybody in check. Because when you have an empire, so one of the disadvantages of empire is that when it falls, when it breaks, the different groups may have to start fighting and jostle for supremacy. And with that comes war, with that comes altercations and things like that. So with the decline of Oyo, which started around the 18th century into the 19th century, actually, I think it affected it as well. But yes, we had wars amongst ourselves and all of those things. I mean, we all know about the Creed War, although that one came much later, but didn't help matters if you really think about it.